Enforced aid, the war on the family. If you're ready to uncover the hidden chains dragging our future into the abyss, hit that like, smash the share, and lock in your subscribe or follow. Because truth like this demands an army of awakened minds. We're tackling something that's at the heart of society but often gets overlooked. The way Marxist policies, along with all those enforced social programs and welfare systems, are systematically eroding family bonds and leading to the outright destruction of families. It's a heavy topic, but one that's essential to understand if we want to grasp why so many modern societies are facing decline and degeneracy. I'll walk you through the reasons step by step, drawing from solid economic and historical insights, and show how these state-driven interventions aren't just misguided. They're a core evil that poisons current generations and dooms the ones to come. Let me paint a picture for you without getting into the nitty-gritty just yet. Imagine a world where families thrive naturally, where parents and children support each other through life's ups and downs, building wealth, values, and connections that last across generations. Now, picture a massive state apparatus stepping in, promising to handle everything from cradle to grave, education, healthcare, retirement, you name it. Sounds helpful at first, right? But what if I told you this help comes at the cost of weakening those very family ties, turning people into isolated dependents on the government instead of reliant on their loved ones? That's the hook we're exploring. How these policies don't uplift families but undermine them, creating a cycle of breakdown that leads to moral decay and societal collapse. Alright, now let's get into the meat of it. We'll start by looking at the historical roots and real-world examples of how these ideas have played out. Back in the 19th century, thinkers like Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels laid the groundwork in works like the German ideology, arguing that to abolish the individual economy, you had to abolish the family itself. They saw the family as the basic unit of capitalism, a stronghold of private property, productivity, and voluntary exchange. In their vision, communist society would take over child-rearing, providing all the material and moral support, making parents obsolete. This wasn't just theory. It inspired Bolshevik experiments in the early Soviet Union. Figures like Alexandra Kollontai pushed for state guarantees of child support, inseparable from eliminating the family. Women were liberated from marriage and household duties, but in reality, it left them in unfulfilled, state-dependent lives, as reported by observers at the time. Communal arrangements, like those dreamed up by earlier utopians such as Robert Owen with group marriages and collective child-rearing in cooperatives, were hailed as revolutionary. But these always failed, dissolving nuclear families into chaotic collectives where bonds based on biology and affection were replaced by state-directed care. Fast forward to the 20th century, and we see this in action through welfare states. In the US, the rise of programs like Social Security in the 1930s displaced mutual aid societies that once covered a third of adult males, fostering community and family-based support. Before that, families handled elder care through reciprocal obligations, parents raised kids, and kids supported parents in old age. No mass starvation of the elderly during the Great Depression, despite no government safety net. But once the state stepped in, it crowded out these natural duties. Similarly, in Europe, post-World War II welfare expansions correlated with climbing divorce rates and falling fertility. In places like Iran and Pakistan, state-driven price hikes from currency debasement amplified family tensions, turning dowries into divorce incentives. And don't forget the Great Society legislation in the 1960s, Medicare, Medicaid, and more, which redirected resources from households to the state, straining marriages and reducing birth rates from over 3 children per woman to below replacement levels. These aren't isolated incidents. They're patterns. Bolshevik-style policies promised free love and universal happiness, but they contradicted human nature. August Bebel's Woman and Socialism from 1892 promoted free love as a distraction from economic impossibilities, framing monogamy as an impediment to pleasure. In practice, this led to societal collapse, with state regulation even proposing to oversee sexual relations or place infants in public nursing homes, ignoring parental bonds entirely. Now, shifting to the themes and deeper analysis, let's break down why these enforced social programs are such a core evil. At their heart, they position the state as a rival to the family, centralizing control and weakening private bonds. Take welfare subsidies like temporary assistance for needy families. They often provide more to single mothers, incentivizing family breakdown by reducing the need for fathers to stick around. Men become optional, leading to more single-parent households and fatherless children, which breeds cycles of poverty, crime, and emotional instability. Unemployment insurance discourages people from seeking work elsewhere, fostering complacency instead of family-driven resilience. Before these programs, families mobilized, moving for jobs, pooling resources, to survive hardships like the Balkan War refugees who relied on kin networks. Taxes are another weapon in this arsenal. Inheritance taxes disrupt intergenerational wealth transfer, penalizing long-term family planning. They shrink the time horizon for saving and investing, encouraging short-sighted behavior and filial disloyalty. Why behave wisely or care for aging parents if the state confiscates the rewards? This leads to elderly isolation, kids ignorant of heritage, and a disregard for traditions. Marriage penalties in the tax code extract more from couples, up to $1,400 extra annually, treating them as separate earners rather than a unit. In 1948, families paid just 3% in taxes. Now it's up to 38%, making dual incomes necessary and eroding traditional roles where one spouse provided and the other managed the home. Child exemptions are worthless compared to historical standards, turning kids from assets into pure costs, especially with child labor laws barring their contributions and Social Security eliminating the need for them to support parents later. Inflationary policies from central banks, like the Federal Reserve's 2% target, erode savings and complicate family planning. Hyperinflation in the Weimar Republic devastated households, pushing risky investments and diminishing moral standards. This uncertainty delays marriage, reduces fertility. Couples see kids as negative income flows amid rising education and housing costs, and heightens divorce. In developed nations, price surges from state interventions lead to fewer children. In poorer areas, welfare encourages more for short-term labor, but pulls them from education, hindering long-term stability. Education is a prime example of state overreach. Government schooling appropriates parents' roles as moral guides, with kids spending more time in class than at home from age 3 onward. It instills pro-state narratives, subverting family values and fostering dependence. Karl Marx advocated this to abolish the family, implanting ideas that make youth question parental authority. The system's inefficiency, rising costs, declining outcomes, isn't a bug. It's a feature to expand control. Then there's protectionism, tariffs and subsidies that inflate prices for essentials like diapers or baby formula, as seen in the 2022 shortage caused by FDA regulations. These hidden taxes strain budgets, disproportionately hitting low-income families and disincentivizing larger ones. Monetary expansion distorts decisions, echoing Bolshevik controls that reduce thriving by eroding purchasing power. The core analogy here is powerful. The family is like private property, an anarchistic institution predating the state, arising from human nature, biology, and civilization. It thrives on voluntary contracts, consent, and mutual investment. But Marxist policies treat it as a bourgeois relic, a competitor to state power. By deprivatizing care, contesting parental rights, promoting collective child-rearing, they atomize individuals, making them isolated units dependent on government agents. This isn't progress. It's degeneracy, breaking natural affections and leading to moral decay. Enforced programs promise liberation but deliver isolation, turning society into a collection of state-reliant drones. For current generations, it means delayed marriages, plummeting birth rates, US from 3.65 to 1.84 kids per woman since 1960, and soaring divorces from economic stress. For future ones, it's a legacy of weakened bonds, reduced innovation, and inevitable decline. Societies without strong families crumble. To drive this home, here are some key insights straight from the thinkers who've dissected this. As one economist put it in 1922, the socialist program for the transformation of the relations between the sexes goes hand in hand with that for the socialization of the means of production. Another observed that the family motive drives long-term societal interests, but confiscatory taxes destroy it, leading to anti-saving attitudes that weaken capitalism from within. From historical texts, in communist society, the care and education of the children becomes a public affair. Society looks after all children alike, and on the welfare state, it crowds out family responsibility, transferring moral duties to the government and removing incentives for cohesion. Finally, a stark warning. The state hates what it did not create and can destroy institutions like the family through interventions. In wrapping this up, I urge you to reflect on these patterns and consider paths that prioritize freedom over state control. Strong families build resilient societies. Let's champion voluntary associations, free markets, and personal responsibility to counteract this erosion. Keep bonding. Stay free.